Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Congressman Cummings, welcome back to Meet the Press, sir.
It's good to be with you.
Let me start with the Saudi issue first and foremost, because I know you've been on this issue as well. You have the president disagreeing with his CIA. What responsibility at oversight? You see, do you look to see if he has financial motivation for making the decision? And is this something Congress needs to look into?
I think it's definitely something that we need to look into. And we probably will. Keep in mind, Chuck, one of the things we're concerned about in oversight is the emoluments clause. Whether the president is acting in his best interest or those of the American people. And I think this would be appropriate, and there are other committees that will be looking at this too.
You have so many subpoena requests.
That's right.
You have members on the Democratic side of the aisle who have all of these investigations they want to start. Your job is to prioritize this. Explain your priorities. Explain how, with the prism of how you're going to make these decisions about what's worthy of the committee's time and what will look like sort of crass partisan politics.
Well, there are a number of subpoenas that we have requested, some 64, and these, Chuck, are things that we would have normally done under Republican or Democratic administration. But let's be abundantly clear. The American people said to us through this election, we want accountability. We want to check on this president of the United States. But they also said something else. They said, we want you to solve our problems. And so a lot of our emphasis is going to be on and laser focus on things like the skyrocketing cost of prescription drugs, checking our health care, dealing with things like issues like opioids, and one that is near and dear to me, voting rights. We're going to look at all of that. Now, as far as President Trump and his administration, again, the American people have said to us, they want robust, transparent, and investigations with integrity. So I haven't figured out exactly what order they're in, because they're all important. But I guarantee you we'll look at quite a bit.
I want to play for you, put up a quote here actually from Jason Chaffetz,
okay.
who you were the ranking member when he was chair of the Oversight Committee on the Republican side of the aisle. And he says, first of all, he makes the following claim. I sent letters and subpoenas to the Trump administration and got no response. I was stymied every step of the way. What makes you think Elijah Cummings will get a response?
Well,
is he right, by the way? Was he stymied, even a Republican?
I think, no doubt about it. But I also think that the Republicans were aiders and abettors with regard to helping President Trump do some of the unfortunate things that he's done. Because President Trump knew that there was not going to be any pushback. Now he knows there's going to be some pushback, and it's going to be serious pushback, because that's what the American people want. Now, I don't know what will happen. We're gonna be very careful with issuing subpoenas. I don't want people to think that the first day I walk in there, we're going to have 38 subpoenas going out the door. Not going to do that. We're going to do it very carefully and make sure that it's done with integrity.
You did not have your own subpoena power when you were ranking member.
That's right. For a long time.
And it was the first time that had ever happened compared to previous Congresses, correct?
Right.
Do you plan on granting your ranking member, whoever it is on the Republican side, subpoena authority?
No.
So why not? Explain why you wouldn't. If you believe this is something that should have been granted to you when you were in the minority.
I didn't say that. They who have power in Washington have all power. Right. And I think the American people have said they want checks and balances. The subpoenas that I want to issue would be much different than what I've seen. I want to issue subpoenas that go to the very heart of our democracy and protecting that democracy. And subpoenas, by the way, that may involve, say, private industry, like the pharmaceutical companies that are with these skyrocketing drug prices. So I just don't. It's our opportunity. I will consult with them. Yeah. I will work with them, unlike they did with me. But no.
This is one of those what's good for the goose is good for. I mean, I guess the point is that when do you stop?
Chuck, let me be clear. Yeah. I'm hoping that we will return to a civility now. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping for. I hope that we can have leadership that just doesn't move to common ground, but move to higher ground. And I plan to lead that way. And one other thing, our Democratic Party, although we may not have been elected by all the people, we've got to govern as if we were.
So what does that mean? You've got to work with this president in some ways, don't you?
I would love to work with President Trump. I want to hold him accountable, not only to the American people, but I want to hold him accountable to himself. Keep in mind, he is the one who said recently that he's for prescription drugs going down. He's the same one who said that he complained during the election about the infrastructure and how our airports are so poor and our roads. And now it's the time. Chuck, we only have 2 years. That's nothing. And so we've got to get it done. We don't have to hit the ground as Democrats running. We have to hit the ground flying.
It is Monday, the 26th of November of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Folks, we have all those great holiday fixins already consumed because it's probably too late to be still having turkey around unless you froze it, which I would never suggest because ice crystals have little cutting edges in them. Ooh, and you don't know the damage it does on the molecular level. Be careful. Please, folks. Do not get sick now. Isn't it surprising, just as an aside, just about 6 months after inspections at farms for water contamination stopped because of Trump decree, because they wanted to save, around $108 million. Now it looks like we're going to be spending, what was the number I saw? $108 million saved on this oversight, this scurrilous regulation. And now that people are dying and getting sick from contaminated romaine lettuce, it's going to cost somewhere around $400 million, maybe, I think more. Yeah, you pay now or you pay later. So elections have consequences. And to get back on track here, Elijah Cummings said that elections have consequences. The American public said they want oversight. They want oversight on this presidency. And so the first thing that all the committees apparently are going to be doing is investigating policy, which is fine. And I wouldn't get too depressed. Oh, they're not going to take him down for all the corruption, abuse of power, or the Russia connection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, they're going to do that too. Because we are Democrats. We can multitask. And all these committees do. They don't have just one investigation. They have scores, each of them. So, and trust me, the Judiciary Committee and the Banking Committee, they're going to be looking at follow the money. And in terms of the Judiciary Committee, even though I know Adam Schiff is now, saying, look, privately saying, we got to go a little slow on investigating Trump on the Russia connection. Publicly saying they're going to go gangbusters. But privately, I have it on the low. And the reason being, and no one's really saying this, but I suspect it's because they're going to let Mueller do his job. And we are Democrats, and we're going to see how it shakes out before we say guilty. All right? Even though it's obvious, we have to let the process play out. Because what if he's not guilty on something? We have to be sure. I mean, I don't want to put anybody in a jail. See, this is what I don't get. You know, I have heard that sometimes criminals will say, you know, they didn't get me on the real crime I committed. The real crime. They got me on some other, I mean, not even a crime. I didn't commit it. But karma being karma or whatever. I mean, I've just heard that. And I that's not justice. Okay? That is not the American way. I know that people go to jail for any number of reasons, and this is not justice. But the ideal that we as Democrats always try to uphold is, you know, the rule of law. And people go to jail for the crime committed, all right? Not because they weren't caught on some other crime. How does that justify what happened to Al Capone? Because he also violated the tax laws. Wasn't as if he was innocent of the tax laws. But yeah, they didn't get him on the murder charges because he had enough of an out back in the day. I don't think he would now. But he also violated the tax law. That's still a felony. So it's not as if they made it up. Okay? And just get back on this thing about Elijah Cummings and others in the leadership saying, you got to go slow on the Russia things, because I suspect Mueller is still doing his job. On the other hand, this guy by decree will just say, hey, gas babies. Yeah. At the same time that Putin is gassing the Ukraine. Of course, Trump probably feels that if Putin can gas dissidents, poison dissidents in Salisbury, why can't I gas babies at the border? And he did. Well, by proxy. Because the SA Gestapo Border Patrol, his brown shirt cadre of, it's a little personal army, are all too willing to seek the reprisals that Herr Fuhrer really wishes he could do himself. But he can't because he's got such small hands. And he's afraid that somebody might kill him, and I don't know why. Oh, God. Yeah, manly man. Did you see that crazy picture of him playing football? That sycophant artist who just, I don't know, it's weird. It's like North Korean realism. So whatever that is. My God. Now what I heard and what I usually experienced when I was, on the field, albeit not very long, but, enough into college to, get knocked around and knock around a few too. Is that, he was easy to tackle. And he got into a lot of fistfights because he was pretty much humiliated in every athletic endeavor that he endeavored in. So, of course, he's going to pound on people like a bully. And he had money, too. So you get away with a lot when you have money. Hey, what's on the rest of the menu today? There's so much news out there. George Papadopoulos went to jail. Well, he's supposed to. And let me just interject real quick. I know this is going a little long. But let me interject real quick. I hate the prison rape jokes. I just think that it's inappropriate for us on our side to make jokes about rape in any capacity. Like the guy has it coming. Oh, you're going to go. How about like we, not have prison rape? Why don't we try to engender some sort of, camaraderie among the group so they don't prey on each other? I don't know. Well, of course, it's not about rehabilitation, isn't it? Is it? It's not about, getting the boat to raise to our level. It's to keep them down, to keep the hole so that they continually take on water and no amount of pump is going to be able to get them to float. I don't know. It seems inhumane. So let's not Let's not do the rape jokes, please. Thank you. That said, he's going to suffer for 2 whole weeks. He's going to be a martyr for the cause for 2 whole weeks. And he's going to play it up, and he's going to get a gig on Fox. If not, he might even get a show on the Sinclair Broadcasting Network, right there with Boris. And well, he should. What's on the rest of the menu today here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays? A Greek court cleared 9 men of the murder of a Black American college student who was brutally beaten to death by the group last year. Yeah. Well, they got a few years, a few of them. But they're on camera. They beat the crap and stomped on this guy and killed him. No murder charges. Well, of course, he's black and these other guys were Serbs, except for one, I believe, Brazilian guy. A free little library with a plaque honoring Michelle Obama has been continuously attacked by Trump-loving vandals since early 2017. What is it about the guy that brings out the worst in some of us? And school officials in one district claim free speech rights protect the students photographed giving the Nazi salute, while another school district maintained that a student's Black Lives Matter shirt was disruptive and threatening language that posed a potential danger to the school and the community as well. How can that be? Fair and balanced, I guess. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the UK Parliament used its legal powers to seize internal Facebook documents after Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg repeatedly refused to answer MPs' questions. And they didn't like that. And archaeologists at a seminal dig in Jordan discover that Christian historians' accounts of persecution of the faithful at the hands of the Romans was greatly exaggerated. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. If you take a gander then to the leftish of the page at our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the contribute button. And all kidding aside, we are in a bit of a fund drive. I know it's the season where you have your money going out. But if you could consider becoming a Patreon of Netroots Radio, your small recurring donation of any size, actually, but even a small one, a cup of coffee once a month, is enough for us to pay our bills. And we are truly unable to do this without you. The bills just went up again, and so I guess I'm saying please help. And thank you, too, for your generosity. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that platform. You can check us out on Facebook, and I Hate Zuckerberg. Did you hear that Sheryl Sandberg has been selling 55,000 shares of Facebook stock twice a month for quite a while now? And it seems like a lot of tech stock types are selling their own company shares. What's that all about? But nonetheless, if you want to follow us there at Facebook, we are there. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I publish the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime. And you can check out all the show notes and links there, as well as some other tidbits of information and, I don't know, nuanced entertainment. It's a multimedia operation here, and that's what we do. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. We're on Facebook. And you can pick up podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart, and also wherever fine podcasts can be found. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by way of Think Progress by Casey and Michelle. Now, a Greek court cleared 9 men of the murder of an American college student by the name of Bakari Henderson, who was brutally beaten to death by the group last year. However, the court still found them guilty of assault against Mr. Henderson, the 22-year-old American student who was killed. The court in western Greece issued sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years for the assailants, although 3 of them were cleared of any jail time. Henderson from Austin, Texas, was in Greece as part of a photography shoot and was studying at the University of Arizona. Now, what happened is that the scuffle initially began because the bartender was chatting up Henderson, not the other way around, as if it would matter. And let's be clear, a bunch of white Serbs were in the bar at the time, and they took offense. And Mr. Henderson, being the American that he is, probably said, "Hey, fuck you." I'm sure of it. And they didn't like that. And then they proceeded to punch him, all 9 of them. Beat him down, kicked him to death, stomped him to death. And they eventually killed him. Now, the decision to clear all of the assailants, almost all of whom were Serbian nationals except for a British citizen. I wasn't Brazilian. I apologize. British. Didn't sit well with Mr. Henderson's parents, Phil and Jill Henderson. If someone could be murdered and there is no justice, what makes you think that you can send your child to another country and be safe? A man's life in Greece doesn't mean anything. Actually, a black life doesn't mean anything. Here or in Greece, apparently, the cradle of democracy. The great T-Bog of Raw Story brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A little free library bearing a plaque honoring former First Lady Michelle Obama has been continuously under attack by Trump-loving vandals. The reports from local papers and the Washington Post, by the way, states that the library set up outside at home at 16th and Q Streets in Northwest Washington, D.C. since early 2017 has had its glass broken and the name Trump scrawled upon it. Now, of course, little free libraries are those little boxes that look like mailboxes that people put out in front of their properties. They're kind of cute. And, did you know the fellow who started that whole thing about the little free libraries passed away not terribly long ago? But people put little books out there and whatnot, and people can borrow the books and put another one back in, and it's neat. So reading any type of reading anyway is a good thing. In my book, no pun intended. And this one, because it had the visage of Michelle Obama on it, apparently is a target for scorn. I wonder why. According to Maureen Dolan Galaviz, who erected the library, she can't understand why anyone would vandalize a library which bears the plaque stating, "In honor of Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama, lawyer, writer, and First Lady of the United States." Who would do that? I don't know, racists? I guess. I've never seen the vandal, said neighbor Debbie Hannaran, 79. None of us have time to stand guard and protect it. We are a neighborhood of writers and readers, she added. For somebody to have something out for a little library, I just can't fathom it. Well, I don't know if you have one of those extremely low-educated types that Trump wants to attract. Reading, and anybody who can read, are a bunch of left-wing elitists. I know, that's what they call them. Police haven't received any reports about the vandalism, with locals attributing the attacks to racism, which I would. Up here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Monday, folks, because nothing goes to waste. Everything is repurposed into a lovely gourmet delight for your delightful pleasure. All right, it's Monday. And I actually have two stories here to juxtapose against each other. One is out of Milwaukee, TMJ4, WTMJ-TV, has a report on those Wisconsin kids, high school seniors who stood for their senior class photo, all boys apparently, and gave the Nazi salute, all except one. And as I've looked very close at the photograph, there's a couple who are not actually giving the Nazi salute, but they are doing the Pepe the Frog little OK symbol. Surreptitiously in some cases, overtly in others. The photographer was a parent who said that he was just asking them to wave at a bus of cheerleaders that were passing by. Yeah, right. And there's one kid off in the upper right who is not saluting, and has a very stoic look on him. When you focus in on his face, a bit of disdain. And it reminded me of the lone German, the photograph of the guy at a Nazi rally back in the day who was not giving the Nazi salute, the only one among thousands. And I'll remind you of what happened to him. But this fellow was asked why he didn't do it. And according to him, it was all planned to do this. So there's a lot of Nazis, white supremacist, bigotry, racism in this school. Now, the school district said that the boys had a First Amendment right to be able to give the stiff arm salute because it's just jocular. It's First Amendment. But then you juxtapose that from a couple of years ago where, and it wasn't just one story, but I found many. A girl wanted to wear her Black Lives Matter shirt for the school photograph, and they put the school on lockdown. Lockdown. Because apparently Black Lives Matter, when you put on those shirts, you hulk up and you become threatening, disruptive, and a danger to the community. Well, let's get on with our break. It is Monday, and when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world and the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, no apology needed. For an actress best known for her work in raunchy comedies, it's strange to see Melissa McCarthy play the role of a sour, inebriated, crazy cat lady type in Can You Ever Forgive Me? In a role completely devoid of glamour or ego, McCarthy plays the real-life writer Lee Israel, who prior to 1991 had achieved a degree of success for her well-written and researched biographies. But by the time we meet her in the film, however, these glory days are over. Desperate to pay the rent, Lee discovers that she can put her writing talent to use embellishing, or in some cases inventing letters by deceased luminaries, including Dorothy Parker and Noel Coward. In other words, Lee finds a new career as a forger, and she's so good at it that she manages to convince many so-called experts that her creations are real. While this extra-legal career changes her financial situation, it does little to change a personal life that is quite empty, with the exception of fellow writer, drinking buddy, and eventual accomplice Jack Hawk, who's played by a charming Richard E. Grant. While Jack is openly gay, Lee is mostly closeted, and even the promise of a potential relationship with a shy female bookstore owner who is a fan ends due to Lee's awkwardness and inability to allow people to become close. There are laughs here, but the movie is very much a drama about isolation and human connection. Lee is only able to connect and show warmth in her writing when pretending to be somebody else. Can You Ever Forgive Me also functions as a look at the weird world of literary fans and collectors and the self-appointed experts who deal in the detritus of celebrity. While Lee's creations may have been fakes, there's nothing but authenticity in McCarthy's performance here. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Thanksgiving is, of course, really all about the side dishes. And alongside mashed potatoes and the yams, Brussels sprouts are a common side on many Thanksgiving tables. Not that they're equally appreciated, but science is here to save Turkey Day with a way to mitigate the sprouts' intense, slightly bitter flavor. And here's a secret. Take swigs of red wine as you eat them. Like any human research study, or perhaps more importantly for one in which you'll be forcing people to eat Brussels sprouts, the project started off with approval from an ethics committee. Researchers then served 28 volunteers slices of microwaved Brussels sprouts and asked them to rate the intensity of their flavor on a scale of 1 to 10. They then alternated their bites with red wine, gravy, or bottled water and rated the flavor again. Turns out the subjects scored the sprouts as significantly less intense on the flavor scale after a sip of wine, 3.5 out of 10 compared to 5.5. Maybe the scientists right because the astringency of wine interferes with the saliva's ability to deliver bitter flavor molecules to the taste buds. The results are in the Journal of Texture Studies, which is a real publication. Unfortunately for the kids at the table, gravy and water did not do the taste trick. But for adults who choose to use this Thanksgiving hack, please imbibe responsibly, though it's hard to imagine you'll be eating that many Brussels sprouts. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
It's Cyber Monday. Get out there and buy stuff. But you don't actually have to go anywhere, for this gimmicky shop day lures us to consume without leaving home or even getting out of bed. Concocted by Amazon, the online marketing monopolist, Cyber Monday is a knockoff of Black Friday. Just another ploy by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos to siphon sales from real stores. Seems innocent, but behind Amazon's online convenience and discounted prices is a predatory business model based on exploitation of workers, bullying of suppliers, dodging of taxes, and use of crude anti-competitive force against America's Main Street businesses. A clue into Amazon's ethics came when Bezos instructed his staff to get ever cheaper prices from small business suppliers by stalking them, quote, the way a cheetah would pursue a sickly gazelle. Jeff Crandall, who owns Old Town Bike Shop in Colorado Springs, is one who's under attack. He offers fair prices, provides good jobs, pays rent and taxes, lives in and supports the community. But he's noticed that more and more shoppers come in to try out bikes and get advice, yet not buy anything. Instead, their smartphones scan the barcode of the bike they want, then they go online to purchase it from Amazon cheaper than Crandall's wholesale price. You see, the cheetah is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year beast that can sell that bike at a loss, then make up the loss on sales of the thousands of other products it peddles. This is Jim Hightower saying this amounts to corporate murder of small business. And yes, it's illegal. But Amazon is doing it every day in practically every community. So on this Cyber Monday, let's pledge to buy from local businesses that support our communities. For information, go to American Independent Business Alliance at www.amiba.net.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Monday, November 26, 2018. I'm Mark Belanger. A new report by the United Nations International Labour Organization shows that global wage growth in 2017 fell to its lowest rate since the Great Recession of 2008. The growth rate is much lower than before the global financial crisis. In economically advanced countries, the rate was 0.4% in 2017, as compared to 0.9% in 2016. The ILO is the UN's specialized agency focused on matters of work in the world. It is led by Guy Ryder, a labor unionist. In releasing the ILO's global wage report, Mr. Ryder said, "Stagnating wages are an obstacle to economic growth and rising living standards. Countries," he said, "should explore with their social partners ways to achieve socially and economically sustainable wage growth." The report does provide good news for emerging and developing countries, though. Real wage growth in those countries was 4.3% in 2017. This confirms a long-term trend. In the last 20 years, average real wages in emerging and developing countries have almost tripled. In contrast, wages in economically advanced countries over the same period increased only 9%, much lower than the rate of inflation. Xu Ding is an economist with the ILO.
Global wage growth in 2017 fell to its lowest wage growth rate since 2008, remaining far below the level of 3.4% before the global financial crisis. In advanced G20 countries, real wage growth declined from 1.7% in 2015 to 0.9% in 2016 and 0.4% in 2017. Given the recovery in GDP growth and the gradual reduction in employment rates, slow wage growth in high-income countries in 2017 has been subject of intense debate. Intensification of global competition, the decline in the bargaining power of workers, and uncertain economic outlook are among possible explanations for subdued wage growth. By contrast, low and middle-income countries have experienced a more robust wage growth. If we take a long-term perspective of about 20 years, the real wages have tripled in emerging and developing G20 countries, while in advanced G20 countries, they have increased by a much lower total of 9%. Yet, in many low and middle-income countries, average wages remain low and insufficient to cover the needs of workers and their families.
This year's ILO Global Wage Report has a special focus on pay equity. It finds that globally, women continue to be paid approximately 20% less than men. ILO economist Rosalia Vázquez Alvarez reports.
This year's Global Wage Report explores the gender pay gap, a phenomenon which represents one of today's greatest social injustices. Using data from about 70 countries, covering nearly 80% of wage employees worldwide, the report explores what lies behind the gender pay gap. First, the report shows gender pay gaps are found just about in all countries, and on average, women are paid 20% less than men across the world. And second, factors that often determine wages, such as education, don't seem to explain the gender pay gap. However, our research shows that mothers are earning lower wages than non-mothers. We call this the motherhood gap. We also see a tendency for wages to be lower in enterprises where the workforce is predominantly made of women. For example, in Europe, wage employees in enterprises with a predominantly female workforce can earn $4,000 less per year compared to those in enterprises with a similar productivity profile but with a different gender mix.
You can find the Global Wage Report for 2018-19 on the ILO's website at www.ilo.org. And that's it. International labor news you can use. I'm Mark Polanczyk. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 Minutes. This week, President Trump berated Pakistan on Twitter for harboring Osama bin Laden and, quote, doing nothing for us. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Trump said Pakistan would no longer receive $1.3 billion in U.S. aid, though it wasn't clear whether he was speaking of upcoming aid or merely reiterating previous cuts. A Pentagon statement that mentioned $1.6 billion in suspended aid added little clarity. Marvin Weinbaum directs the Afghanistan and Pakistan project at the Middle East Institute and says U.S. aid cuts have failed to convince Pakistan to sever ties with the Taliban in the past.
We've played that card with no success.
Weinbaum says reopening old wounds now could be self-defeating.
What is surprising is the timing of this.
Pakistan is widely believed to be harboring senior Taliban leaders and therefore holds important sway over the group the U.S. desperately needs at the negotiating table to resolve the political crisis in Afghanistan. Pakistan could apply pressure on the Taliban, but nasty U.S. rhetoric is an unusual incentive for doing so.
Specifically now, Pakistan has got to be on board if we're going to make any progress really towards serious negotiations with the Taliban.
Repairing the relationship with Pakistan won't be easy, given its interest in keeping Afghanistan a failed state. A stable Afghanistan could forge ties with Pakistan's chief rival India, which Trump has been cozying up to. But an unlikely breakthrough could come from China, which is investing billions in Pakistani infrastructure, a gamble that economic incentives could achieve what U.S. coercion has not.
If they are able with this to strengthen Pakistan's economy and make the country economically stronger, a Pakistan which is succeeding is in a much better position to move against its own domestic extremist groups.
Luke Vargas, New York.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. And as our first amuse-bouche, we always bring weather from around the world right here to Netroots Radio, and we begin it along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 41 degrees Fahrenheit. We're supposed to be, they say, much warmer than yesterday. We're supposed to go up to 59. Well, we were at 57, so yeah, I guess that would be considered much warmer. Winds right now are out of the southeast, and they are light and variable, about 0 to 1 mile per hour. So that's light and variable. And they will remain so until early this evening. Well, where they will then shift to out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And they're going to bring, over a third of an inch of rain. Yes. And then another third tomorrow, where the winds will then just be light and variable. And we will then, I don't have wind speed forecasts for later on than tomorrow, but we do have quite a bit of rain forecast for the next several days. And then a little one-day respite, and then some more. And that also means snow in the upper elevations, even though it's quite warm, so it'll be up in the upper elevations. Pollen is not an issue. I guess it's wintertime, and that's why. Air quality index is good, though right at the cusp of going into moderate at 50 parts per million. And the daytime UV index is a wintertime low of 1. But I would still be careful because reflective sunlight off of light surfaces, even in the wintertime, can damage. So be careful. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.14 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, though we are in cloudy conditions. And relative humidity is at 84%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Even people around Rogue River. So it's not just overseas, but we do have the overseas forecast, actually around the world, because we come right back here to the States. Starting off in London, the fellow or gal who happens to have that weather station in their purview is registering 46 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 43 and cloudy. Rome is 59 degrees and partly cloudy with a weather advisory, and we are getting that right now. A disruption due to thunderstorms. Right now, the winds are out of the south-southwest, gusting to 40 to 50 miles per hour. So hold on to your hats in Rome. Kiev is 32 and cloudy. Kabul is 48 with smoke. I guess it's cold, and they burn a lot of whatever they can find. Hong Kong is 65 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 57 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 64 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 51 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is 51 degrees, cloudy with a weather advisory of a gale warning. So looks like a steady winds, 10 to 20 miles per hour with gusts. So, gale. So that's what? 60 miles per hour. So do hold on to your hats in New York as well. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Carol Cadwallader from The Guardian brings us this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Not counting weather from around the world, because that's technically the first offering. But this one is the first article. And it looks like Parliament there has used its legal powers, there being the UK, of course, to seize internal Facebook documents in an extraordinary attempt to hold the U.S. social media giant to account. after Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg repeatedly refused to answer MPs' questions. The cache of documents is alleged to contain significant revelations about Facebook decisions on data and privacy controls that led to the Cambridge Analytica scandal. It is claimed they include confidential emails between senior executives and correspondence with Zuckerberg. Damian Collins, the chair of the Culture, Media, and Sport Select Committee, invoked a rare parliamentary mechanism to compel the founder of a U.S. software company, 643, to hand over the documents during a business trip to London. In another exceptional move, Parliament sent a sergeant-at-arms to his hotel with a final warning and a 2-hour deadline to comply with his order. When the software firm founder failed to do so, it is understood he was escorted to Parliament. He was told he risked fines and even imprisonment if he didn't hand over the documents. A little bit of a message to Mark, isn't there? You don't answer our questions, we'll put you into jail too. Until you do. And then he'll have to go to the docket. We are in uncharted territory, said Collins, who also chairs an inquiry into fake news. This is an unprecedented move, but it is an unprecedented situation. Indeed. We failed to get answers from Facebook, and we believe the documents contain information of a very high public interest. The seizure is the latest move in a bitter battle between the British Parliament and the social media giant. I love British writing. So much consonance. The struggle to hold Facebook to account has raised concerns about limits to British authority over international companies that now play a key role in the democratic process. Facebook, which has lost more than $100 billion in value since March, when the Observer exposed how Cambridge Analytica had harvested data from 87 million U.S. users, faces another potential PR crisis. It is believed the documents will lay out how user data decisions were made in the years before the Cambridge Analytica breach, including what Zuckerberg and senior executives knew. Well, I would say not only what, but when. The inquiry leading the MPs to investigate fake news have repeatedly tried to summon Zuckerberg to explain the company's actions. He has repeatedly refused, but he sat down with Vlad. So that's good. Collins said this reluctance to testify, plus misleading testimony from an executive at a hearing in February, had forced MPs to explore other options for gathering information about Facebook operations. We have a very serious questions for Facebook. It misled us about Russian involvement on the platform, and it has not answered our questions about who knew what, when, and with regards to the Cambridge Analytica scandal. We have followed this court case in America, and we believe these documents contained answers to some of the questions we have been seeking about the use of data, especially by external developers. Okay. That was a poor attempt at a British accent, but I was trying to make it, a little upper crust. The documents seized were obtained during a legal discovery process by 643. It took action against the social media giant after investing $250,000 in an app. 643 alleges the cache shows Facebook was not only aware of the implications of its privacy policy, but actively exploited them, intentionally creating and effectively flagging up the loophole that Cambridge Analytica used to collect data. That raised the interest of Collins and his committee. A Facebook spokesperson said that 643's claims have no merit, and we will continue to defend ourselves vigorously. Yes, we will, because we're up in a campus in Silicon Valley. The files are subject to an order of a California Superior Court, so cannot be shared or made public, at risk of being found in contempt of court. Because the MP summons was issued in London, where Parliament has jurisdiction, it is understood the company founder, although a U.S. citizen, had no choice but to comply. It is understood that 643 has informed both the court in California and Facebook's lawyers. Facebook said, the materials obtained by the DCMS committee are subject to a protective order of the San Mateo Superior Court restricting their disclosure. We have asked the DCMS committee to refrain from reviewing them and to return them to counsel or to Facebook. We have no further comment. Well, it is unclear what, if any, legal moves Facebook can make to prevent publication. The UK, Canada, Ireland, Argentina, Brazil, Singapore, Latvia, etc., 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 all have representatives joining what looks to be a high-stakes encounter between Facebook and the politicians. Richard Allen, Vice President for Policy, who will testify at the special session after Zuckerberg declined to attend, said the company takes its responsibility around, quote, a number of important issues about privacy, safety, and democracy very seriously. Let's take lunch now.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Finishing up here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays is an article out of Raw Story by the great T-Bog. Now, I can't even fathom. I can't. Can you, that Christian historians would have ever exaggerated anything that was in the Bible? Well, archaeologists working in Jordan claim that Christian historians inflated reports about the torture of the faithful at the hands of Romans. The report states, in his church history, Eusebius of Caesarea, the first Christian historian, tells the story of the rise of Christianity from a regional Jewish splinter group to the dominant religion of the Roman Empire. Eusebius wrote in the 4th century and was at least acquainted, if not actually friendly, with the Roman Emperor Constantine. The main focus of Eusebius's history was the persecution. Well, these archaeologists have found no evidence of any kind of persecution. In fact, it looks like the graveyard that they are investigating were all happy workers, well-fed, well-cared for, had dense bones, in some cases more dense than our own. And, of course, we've had pretty or less dense, or let me put it this way, less bone density over the years, but regardless, these people were not necessarily persecuted. They didn't have any of the telltale signs. And that was a very curious outcome. And so until they find some sort of evidence, and they're thinking that maybe things were exaggerated. Well, you would think so when the first books were compiled. About 270 years after the fact. That's a lot of fixing, isn't it? Okay, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. Here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, but not for Netroots Radio. No. We will visit with you tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned all day and all night to Netroots Radio for all the news as it breaks, and we will visit with you right here tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.